Hi guys, I'm Eliza Wood, this is my channel, and let's talk about decorating pumpkins. Yes, my hair's a mess. It was part of the look, but it didn't really come through, so whatever. Anyway, now I know you're here for the Balrog mask, but there's a little bit of backstory about decorating pumpkins that I wanted to go through first to explain what's going on. So my work had a pumpkin decorating contest where we were supposed to decorate a pumpkin, and they told us the Thursday before Halloween, and it was due on Halloween. My coworker, who I was making my pumpkin with, suggested, knowing me because I have a whole decoration of Lord of the Rings stuff, that we do a pumpkin based on the Balrog. Now she had this whole idea of decoupaging the pumpkin with different pictures of the different villains of Lord of the Rings. So that entirely was hers. When I get to the end and show you the pumpkin, she did the decoupage. I did not touch the pumpkin itself, I just did the Balrog. And one of the things that she suggested was to put horns on the pumpkin to symbolize the Balrog. And I was all for it. I was like, I'll go home, I'll make the pumpkins over the weekend, it'll be great. So I was just gonna do some horns. I wasn't gonna film it because what content is that to make some real quick horns? I mean, of course it's content, especially if you're gonna do like full out, but I was just gonna like whip up some horns and bring them to work, and that was gonna be it. But then I looked up what the Balrog's horns look like, and it's pretty much from the brow and the cheekbone. That's where the horns kind of attach and extend from. And I was like, well, if it's part of the face, I might as well do a whole mask. So I decided to do a whole mask, so the whole top half of the Balrog face. Now, you would think at this point I would realize this is some content. This is something I can use for YouTube. But no, I was like, who needs it? I can do this in a day, it'll be fine. I won't get any content from this. Suffice it to say, it took me longer than a day, and I actually decided that it was great content. So I did not film the first part of the project because I was stupid, and I didn't film the very last part of the project because I did it at work. I was finishing the last little bits of it at work, and I couldn't very well film while I'm at my actual job. I did, however, take pictures. So I'm gonna go ahead and explain it, what I did, and show you the pictures, and maybe show you some examples of how I did the things, and maybe you can get some hints and tips and whatever to making your own Balrog mask, and some not to-dos, but we'll get to that part. So the first thing I did is I have this styrofoam head. Before I do that, I should go and grab all of my equipment that I used so that you aren't just kind of visualizing it. Hold on. So the first thing I did is I grabbed a styrofoam head. Now, this one is really small. It's definitely not shaped like an actual human head, especially not my human head, but it doesn't really matter for the sake of this particular project. I wasn't trying to make it form fit my face, I just wanted a regular mask. I did not mean to throw that. So I took a foam head, and I had a sheet of those foam sheets. I don't have any available to show you, but it's really just these little thin foam sheets, and I pinned that to this guy, molding it to the face as much as I could, the nose, the eyes, just everywhere that I could get it to mold to the face is what I did. And then from there, I drew a picture of where exactly I wanted the eyes to be, the nose to be, the brow to be, just everywhere that I wanted there to be certain details. Then I added what could be considered an armature, just using some wire. I twisted the middle to make the nose part, and then I put in the wire to put out the horns. Now, my wire armature was not strong enough. I should have made it stronger. I should have twisted more wires together. It needed to be able to hold more weight. The way I did it, I was like, this is just to tell me where it goes. But later on, I realized I needed something that could hold weight. This was not it. And then, while I was making this Balrog mask, I actually wound up seeing a video that somebody had filmed of a Weta workshop, of a sculptor from Weta showing you how to sculpt with just aluminum foil. Now, I unfortunately saw this video in passing and didn't think about it when I saw it, so I didn't save it, and I can't find it again, so unfortunately I can't link it down below. But I can at least tell you what she said. Of course, I won't do it nearly as well as she did. But, so she took her aluminum foil, and she said to make sure that you use the dull side, because if you use the shiny side, you can't see the depth. So you always want to make sure that your dull side is on the outside. And then you're going to crumple it up, making sure to have as much air in it as possible. Now this is going to be loud, and I don't have a microphone to get rid of the background sound, so just give me a moment to crumple this up so you don't have to listen to it. Alright, so this is just a random shape. I didn't try to make anything, but this is what it would look like. So the horn would have been longer, and I was wrapping this around my wire. Then, once you have your aluminum foil in a general shape that you want, you take a spoon. This is the part that I really didn't know. You take a spoon, and you use it to rub against the aluminum foil. And that'll give you a nice flat surface. You can't really see it. So right now it's all bumpy. Take a spoon, rub it against. Of course, mine isn't doing very well because it is a real quick crumpled up mess. And then the other thing she suggested is if you take the line of the spoon, you can also do some detail work in there. And again, mine isn't doing very well. That's pretty much what I did with the horns and the facial structure of the Balrog, using the aluminum foil around the wires and just doing some details on the bone structure of the brow and the cheekbones specifically. I did skip the mouth for now. I did not do the mouth in the aluminum foil or the wire, which I wound up regretting later, but at this point I just did the top portion and the horns. And it was at this moment that I realized that I was being dumb and not filming, so I actually started filming the rest of the project. So I took some clay, and I wanted to have a base layer of clay that I can build off of. So I did as thin a layer as I possibly could of clay. I thought that I had grabbed my air dry clay, but it turns out I had actually grabbed my oven baked clay, which is a little bit of a problem because foam melts in the oven. And since it's not drying, it's just a whole bunch of wet clay that I can accidentally damage as I'm working with it. But at this point it was too late. I've already started working and I can figure a way around the rest of it. So I did my best to do as thin a layer as possible of just filling in the blanks. Since I already have a lot of the detail of what I'm looking for in the aluminum foil, I don't have to bother with making too much detail on my original bit of clay. I plan to, after I'm done with the base layer, I'm going to add in the detail work afterwards. Now I had planned on working on this whole thing wet, but this is where the wire actually comes into play. my wire and aluminum foil horns were not strong enough to hold the weight of the clay. So the clay was cracking and it was trying to pull the horns down, and it was not playing with me right. So I wound up going ahead and finishing off the base layer and stuffing it in the oven for, I believe, 275 degrees for 45 minutes, because that's what Alexa told me, because for some reason I put this oven baked clay in plastic bags and have no idea where I put the instructions. So Alexa told me that in order to do oven baked clay, put it in 275 for 45 minutes. Now, if your clay has the instructions on it, I do highly suggest you use the instructions of your clay, mainly because it is possible to burn clay and it does not look good. I have done it in the past. This particular clay didn't burn, so it was fine, but honestly I wouldn't have cared even if it did, because I was planning on covering it in black anyway. But like if you're doing especially the color clay, like if you're making your entire thing out of colored clay, you don't want to stick it in the oven and have it burn because your color is lost. It was also at this point that I could not work on it anymore, and this was a Sunday, so all of this work was done on a Sunday. For the rest of the time, I only have a few hours every day. I had until Wednesday to do this because we were finishing the pumpkin on Wednesday, so it would be ready on Thursday. So I had Monday, Tuesday, and then finishing it off on Wednesday at work. So now I want to do the detail work, and this is really accentuating the bones, again, the brow bone, the cheekbone, and bringing them into the horns so that you can see the way they go straight into the horns, and also adding the teeth, because that was really the important part. If I don't have the teeth, you can see my own mouth, and my own mouth, it's not monstrous, so I really wanted to have the teeth. I wanted it to be there. Unfortunately, at this point, again, I only had 2 hours to work on it, so at this point, I'm being messy. This Balrog is very much a 4-day build, so I'm not too concerned, although it hurts my perfectionist heart about getting perfect details. If I ever do this again, I will for sure spend so much more time working on the details. But for now, I'm really just doing the very, the most accentuated parts. Just those parts, and that's all I need for now, for this particular contest. And then back in the oven for 275 for 45 minutes. 45 minutes is probably too long for this part of the sculpt because it's pretty thin, and you're actually supposed to, I think it's like 15 minutes per millimeter of, in general, that's what the instructions normally say. But my Alexa only told me 45 minutes, so 45 minutes is what I did. Then once it came out of the oven, I could start working on the painting. Now this is another mistake that I did, kind of, sort of. I knew I needed it, but I didn't do it because I don't own it. For this particular project, I was trying to only use things that I actually owned. And that is, I did not prime the sculpt before I put a base layer down. And this particular clay does not like to keep paint. So you'll see that later when we're working on the detail paint. But for now, we're just gonna do a base layer of paint, which is just going to be black. I struggled a little bit with this because I hadn't decided if I wanted to do the reds and stuff as the base layer and then dry brush the black in, or if I wanted to do black and then do detail work with the reds. Eventually I decided that there was way more black than anything else, so I might as well do the black, and then I can do the detail work with the other colors. So once the black was dry, I then took red. I don't have red, I have like a burgundy red, which I didn't quite feel was right, so I did add a little bit of orange to it, and then I took that and brushed it onto the Balrog and then wiped away any of the excess. I was really just trying to get into the cracks. This is where actually the messiness of the sculpt actually comes into a little bit of a handy, because there's cracks and things that red can get stuck into, and then I can wipe it away from the black so that you can see the reds in the little cracks, but it's not fully visible around the whole head. So black is still the most prominent color. However, when I was wiping away the red, because the Sculpt didn't want to keep the paint, I was also in some places wiping away the black. So the white of the Sculpt started to peer through. I tried really hard to stop that from happening and not let it happen too often, but it did happen every now and again. I figure it's rock. There's a little bit of white rock in there, I guess. Then I had to go to work this is Wednesday now, so at this point I couldn't film anymore. So I will go ahead and show you pictures again. Actually, I don't even think I took pictures of this part, but I have the Sculpt to show you. So the next step is I wanted to put some lights in the Balrog. So I have here this guy, which is just a light. He lights up the whole of the mask. Now, these lights I had for making my Starry Night dress or ball gown or whatever it was. And I thought that there was more lights on these wires and that they were a bit brighter. So I put the lights in so that you would see the glow through the eyes and nose, but it's not very visible. I mean, it's kind of visible if it's nighttime, so it worked as a lighted pumpkin, but during the day it's really not visible at all. So, and then the last step is the fire of the brow. My coworker happened to have cellophane wrapping paper in red. So what we did is we cut triangles into the cellophane wrapping paper, and then we twisted it together and taped it along the bottom. And then I brought in my heat gun to melt it. You can see all this, maybe. You can see all this crinkled looking texture. That's because I melted it with my hot glue gun. I would have preferred to use several different colors in order to get the feel of an actual flame. However, we just didn't have that. We only had red. So again, trying to use our own materials for this purpose. And then I just glued it along the top. And one of them has already fallen off. You can see that's why I have it in my hand, like so. And then we also glued some of the tape on the pumpkin, since you could see through the eyes and the nose, and also because when I put it in the oven, the foam layer that I had attached to make it more comfortable for wear melts it away, and there's only aluminum foil there. So we didn't want people looking at the back of the pumpkin, because the whole pumpkin was wrapped, and seeing this ugly aluminum foil texture. So pretty much the whole back half of the Balrog mask, when it was on the pumpkin, was just fire. And there we have my little friend. I had planned on doing a whole photo session with like fire, and that's why my hair is such a mess. But I have to hold the mask like this, and it doesn't really look very good. I totally started filming this, and then my camera turned off, and I was like, what the heck? Turns out I hadn't actually started filming. I had just been talking to a camera. So anyway, now for the good, the bad, and the ugly. I did not achieve perfection, which hurts my perfectionist heart, as I said earlier, but I am honestly really proud with what I was able to accomplish in the amount of time that I had. I might in the future remake this with more time to spare, where I can really get into the detail work once I have also more experience with working with clay. Because honestly, I don't have all that much experience, and I am honestly surprised by how well it turned out, because I didn't think I was gonna do this well. So there's a couple of things that I would have preferred to change. such as the flames. Again, I would have liked to use different colors of flame so that I could better simulate the fire, but again, I didn't own it. If I didn't own it, I wasn't gonna go get it. So that was slightly disappointing. I would have liked to do the inside of the mask a little bit better. So the main problem with this particular mask is that it's too heavy. I did not actually bother making it into a full-blown mask. Like, originally my plan was to make it into a full mask, put foam on the inside, put some straps on it, something that I can use as an actual mask. However, it is way too heavy for that. It will not stay on my head unless I have like 50 million straps. I might as well put a whole cap on so that it's just spread out throughout my head if I want it to stay on my head. So I didn't bother doing that. There's no straps, there's no comfort layer for the sake of putting it against my face. It's just the aluminum foil and the lights, as you saw earlier. So I would have preferred to do a little bit better with the inside of it, with the fire and the lights and stuff like that. And also, if I had put a base layer on that could keep the paint on a little bit better, I think it would have done a much better look of it. I am really proud of the structure, the bone structure I kept talking about. I'm really proud of how that turned out, and it is a workable mask if I'm holding it. Like, in all the reveal pictures, I'm literally holding it to my face with my hands. It was surprisingly durable. I didn't have too much of an issue, except for at the very end of the day, I was bringing the pumpkin inside because my coworker wanted me to return the pumpkin to her, so I didn't want it to get wet and soggy and therefore to mold. So I brought it inside, and when I was doing so, a tooth broke. But it was the end of the day, and I was like, oh good, you survived Halloween. That's all I needed from you, is to survive Halloween. And I do think it's obviously the Balrog. I mean, if you don't know what the Balrog is, maybe you wouldn't recognize it, but it is obviously the Balrog. So I would have liked to put more lights and something indicative of fire on the inside of the eyes. Maybe like some tool or something that I can see through, but that covers my eyes a little bit. So right now you can see my eyes through it. Well, not when it's not on. So right now the lights actually accentuate my own eyes through the mask, and I would like to hide my eyes. I want you to just be able to see the Balrog. So a lot of people did suggest that I should mold and cast a lighter material for this mask, and if I was happier with the end product enough that I would want to wear it as a full-blown cosplay, I probably would do that. But I really would like to resculpt it and make it a little bit better before I do anything of that nature, because I have to go out and buy the cast and the mold and stuff like that, and I'm just not really ready to do that for a mask that I am very proud of, but because of the time limit. I'm proud of it because I did it in a short amount of time, but if I were to cast it and want it to be used as an actual cosplay, I would not be happy with it. I wouldn't be happy with the end product. The other thing is, I would really like, if ever I do this as a cosplay, to do a bottom jaw. Something that will cover this part of my face, and then when I talk, it'll move. So that would be awesome. And that's all there is for today. If you guys are curious on any of my future projects, please subscribe. If you have any comments, questions, concerns on this current project, please say so in the comments down below. And if you liked this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye! And for anyone who is curious, we did not place in the pumpkin decorating contest which I was disappointed by, but it is what it is. There was some really good pumpkins at the decorating contest.